So let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about Mongoose and the way it works. I'm going to just find a random set of large data on the internet. It turns out there's a game called Magic the Gathering, and up on this website, magicthegatheringJSON.com, there's huge 12.5 megabytes files that shows all of the playing cards, and they have in JSON format all of the playing cards that are available. Turns out all sets, there's multiple sets, like 200 sets of playing cards, so each set has maybe 100 or 200 cards inside of it, and this one downloads them all. So it turns out that all sets.json, which if you on Linux, you could just download it like that, or else click on the link up here to download it, and then save it into the directory where we're doing our work, which happens to be a program I'm giving you, JS objects data MongooseMagic, okay? And save that file, all sets.json in there. There's no point in opening it up. It's too large really to look at. And all sets.json has a series of sets of playing cards in it. So it has set 1, set 2. They have different names in set 1, set 2, but that's more or less what they look like. They're set 1, they're set 2. And then in set 1, there's an object which has some metadata and then an array of cards. And the metadata looks like this, and we're going to use it for the basis for our schema, our Mongoose schema. So there's whatever that is, 7 or 8 fields worth of data with name, code, etc. So that's the metadata up here in each set. And then we'll create a model based on that set. And then we'll go ahead and connect to the database. You'll want to change this to have your data in it for your database. And then down here, we're going to, well, let's start at the very bottom. Down here, the first thing we do is we read the file, allsets.json, and then when we get it back, we might get an error if we can't find the file, in which case we'll just throw an error and the program will exit. And then the next thing we do is we read in all sets, json.parse. Let's read all sets in. So what we need to do is we got a string back from the file, and we need to convert that into real JSON. So we do this, json.parse, to get real JSON out of the string that was in the file we downloaded. Then we iterate over all those sets, and we, assuming that the property is actually part of the set and not something inherited from some other object, which it won't be in this case, but this is just good practice. Then we push that name into an array of names up here, so that when we're done, we know the names of all the sets inside allsets.json. Then we iterate over those names, we get the name, and we write the data. And writing data, we do 2 different things. We write it to disk, so we write the set to disk as a file, and we write the set up to the database itself using Mongoose. So notice up here at the top that we're getting the file system, though. We get FS as the file system for Node.js, and we use that to read all the files. FS, we use the file system. And then here we use it to write out each set. So individual set gets written, and we stringify that and format that so that it can be easily readable once we've written it. And then after writing it to disk, we also write it to Mongoose with this insert set. We connect to the database if we're not already connected. Then based on, here was our schema, here was the model that we created out of the schema. So we create a new instance of our model, and we fill in all the metadata from the set into that schema, and then we save it up to MongoLab. So right now, if you look up here in MongoLab, you'll see that there's nothing called magic sets, okay? So there's nothing called magic sets, which it should be. Remember, we're calling it magic sets, so it becomes plural up here. So we should have a collection called magic sets, and we don't because we haven't run our program yet. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the disk here. And in here, you can see right now we've got allsets.json. We've got node modules, which contains just what you would think it would contain, namely our Mongoose data. We've got package.json, which contains dependency of Mongoose. And then we've got our program that we're looking at right now, MongoosMagic. So we'll go node and we'll parse the magic cards. And there we go. We did it. It parsed them all. And then if we look up here in our database and we refresh it, we find that now we have our magic sets. 187 sets was the total that was in there. And you can look at each set. They've all been inserted up there. So if we go like this, you can see what one set looks like. This is the metadata for one set, everything but the cards. Then also, you'll see that, remember before, there was just a few files in here. Now there's a whole bunch of JSON files, one for each set. And if we open that, then you can see here's the metadata that we just saved. And then here's this array of cards, which goes on forever because there's many, many cards in each set. So what do we do with the cards? How do we write the cards? Well, it's just the same. We get Mongoose, we get our file system. Here's our schema with the cards where each field represents one of the properties. And so, here's our schema for the cards, and we just recreate that just the same way up here. Oh, sorry. Up at the top, here was the schema, the metadata for the set. And that name code, gatherer code was what we found up at the top of this, name code, gatherer code. Okay. So in write cards, we have a card schema, we create a card model, we connect to the database, we insert each card using the exact same thing. First, we create an instance of the card that we want, then we save it. And down here, we read the file, so we're going to read in just one of the cards. I don't need to save, for myself, I don't need to save all the cards up there. So I'm going to take just one set and then write that set up here. And with write data this time, we're going to iterate over all the cards that are in there and insert cards each time. And once the total cards saved, we keep track of the total cards saved equals the number of cards in the deck, then we're done and we close the connection. So we'll go node write cards and it goes out there and writes them. And you can see there were 295 cards up there. And if we come up to the database, you can see now we have the magic cards and here's the cards. And if you looked at one of them, you can see what an individual card looks like. Okay, I think one thing maybe that's worth mentioning here is you can see why I'm not getting hysterical about the fact that we're using the native JavaScript Json drivers rather than getting the C. I mean, this is obviously fast enough. This is a huge amount of data and it gets written virtually instantly. Okay, that's all I really wanted to say. Make sure you guys knew a little bit about this stuff. And once again, this is Charlie. We hope you're having fun with all this and hope you understand a little bit more about Mongoose now. Okay.